Would you do that? Smart girls always get what they want. So just tell me, what do you want?
To kill Don Luis.
Don Luis and Fabio linger over their last drink, both expressing how much they will miss each other. As they sip, Don Luis asks if all the businesses have been cleared. Fabio confirms and hands over a copy of the business transactions. Don Luis hugs him, kisses his forehead, and tells him how much he's going to miss him. They say goodbye, and Fabio walks out, unaware that Don Luis immediately orders his men to kill him. Fabio, slamming the dash in his car, says,
"The bastard thinks I'm an idiot playing it all mellow and shit. If he would have yelled and screamed and threatened to kill my whole family, it would have been better."
He speeds home, telling his wife and daughter, Cataleya, to pack, and they've got 10 minutes. Rummaging through his shelves, he finds what he needs and kneels before Cataleya, handing her a small chip. He tells her it's her passport if anything happens, along with an emergency address.
I don't understand, Papa.
Papa, you don't have to understand. You just have to listen and remember.
As he continues giving instructions, a convoy pulls up and armed men step out, calling for Fabio. His crew tries to stall, insisting he's not home. The armed men inform their boss, but he gives his command for them to go in and kill everyone. As they try to leave, Fabio spots Don Luis's men at the gate. Too late to run, he pulls Cataleya back inside, kneels, and gives her a quick goodbye kiss while he and his wife charge inside and grab guns from their hidden stash and braces for the inevitable breach. The attackers strike with ruthless speed, gunning down the guards at the door and forcing their way inside. His wife makes a desperate run for the stairs but is cut down mid-stride, collapsing by the doorway in front of Cataleya. Fabio rushes to her side, only to be struck by multiple rounds himself, and he falls beside her, bleeding out. Cataleya remains frozen, helplessly watching both her parents die before her eyes. Seeing that the main targets have been taken down, one of the attackers points a gun at Cataleya in an attempt to kill her, but Macro stops him, saying she's just a child. Macro moves closer to Cataleya, sits across the table, and explains to her that her father had betrayed Don Luis, and this is the consequence of his actions. He tells her a property, a small microchip, which belongs to Don Luis, is with her father, and asks if by any means she knows where it is. Cataleya nods her head to affirm, but as Macro stretches his arm to receive the chip, she smartly removes a small knife from beneath the table, lunges forward and stabs his arm, then bolts off through the window with lightning speed. Crashing through the window, Cataleya quickly swallows the ship and launches into a rooftop escape, scaling through ledges and darts across narrow walls while the armed men charged at her with full speed. Cutting across various rooftops, she disappears into tight alleyways and vault fences. Jumping into a wooden shed, it shatters, dumping her into an old man's porch. She doesn't pause, but dives through his window and continues going. One of the men comes after her with a motorbike, but she runs through a crowded market, dodging items while the biker closes in on her, but he hits a table, crashing hard into a vendor's stall. At a corner, Macro nearly intercepts her, but she climbs through the side of a building and disappears again into the rooftop. She lowers herself into a hole on the rooftop, hiding as the armed men pass by. Immediately, she senses calm. She walks down to the street, only to be cornered again by Macro and his men. Without hesitation, Cataleya narrowly escapes, slipping through a small drainage tunnel by the side of the road. Macro, now frustrated, fires into the tunnel, bullets sparking off the concrete, but she's already gone. The exit dumps her into the middle of another street, and without any hesitation, she heads for the American embassy, just as her father had instructed her. At the embassy gate, she meets one of the guards and hands him a small paper card. The guard reads through the content of the paper and immediately takes her inside. After a few questioning, she forces herself to vomit on the table. Calmly, she searches through the vomit and pulls out the tiny microchip, handing it over to the officer. The officer takes it from her and slots it into their system. The officer curiously asks to know where it came from and if she knows what it is. Confirming it comes from her father and calling it her passport, they rush her inside, prepare her travel documents, and board a flight to Miami under the escort of a female agent. During the layover, as she walks through the hallway alongside the female agent, Cataleya excuses herself to use the restroom. Inside, she climbs through the window and vanishes. While the female agent tries to locate her, she heads to the train station, buys a ticket, and heads to Chicago, the last place her father instructed her to go. She wanders the street until a man notices her and asks what she's looking for. Without a word, she hands him the address, and luckily for her, it belongs to his boss. Inside, Emilio is busy beating up a man taped to a chair, bloodied and bruised. He launches another punch, his fist tight with rage, until one of his men hesitatingly interrupts and tells him a girl's asking after him outside. He cares less until he hears her name. The man steps back to see her, and neither of them could hold back their tears as they embrace. The uncle never knew she made it alive, but now that she's with him, he promises to keep her safe. Cataleya wakes up at her uncle's house and walks to the dining area to have breakfast with Emilio and Mama, Cataleya's grandma, who quietly sets a plate in front of her. Seeing a piece of paper of hers, Emilio praises her drawing skills and asks if she wants to become an artist, only for her to cut in and say she wants to become a killer. The next day, Emilio takes her to a nearby school and bribes the principal to register her, even though admission is closed for the year. The woman agrees and tells him it's only because Cataleya just lost her parents. As soon as they step out, Cataleya stops following Emilio. She's angry that the school has nothing to offer her since she already told him what she wants to become and is serious about it. Emilio loses patience, takes out his gun, and fires at a car driving by, causing it to crash at the front of the school.
Hey, that's what you want? You want me to teach you how to be a killer? Sure, no problem. I teach you, but you'll be dead in 5 years.
If you want to be a killer and survive, you got to be a smart one. You have to know things besides how to pull a trigger. You have to know how the world works, how people think. You got to learn to understand how to be psychological. And I cannot teach you that unless you learn the basics at school.
With a gun on one hand and a school bag on the other, Emilio tells her to choose whether to go to school or become a killer. 15 years later in California, a police patrol car is parked mid-break when a car bashes into them from nowhere. A drunk woman stumbles out, slurring and laughing. It's Cataleya who deliberately disguises herself. The officers cuff her and take her inside. At the station, no ID was seen on her except a library card that doesn't match her identity. She acts dazed and groggy and even pretends to want to puke on the desk. And without a second thought, they toss her into holding. Moments later, a U.S. Marshal escorts a high-risk inmate named Gennaro Rizzo into that same police precinct. The boss warns the officers to be alert before heading out, passing right by Cataleya's cell where Cataleya lies motionless, pretending to be fast asleep. When the station settles, Cataleya uses the pin hidden in her hair, escapes her cell, and strategically maneuvers to the electrical room where she pulls out a spoon and plaster cup filled with water, and starts dripping water into the cell's electrical panel. She climbs into the ceiling and squeezes herself through the static vent fan before it kicks back on. Above the block, she moves fast till she drops near Rizzo's cell, waiting in the restroom. When the guard steps away to use the restroom, she knocks him out cold, then sends him through the door first before accessing it herself. Finally gaining access into Rizzo's holding cell, she instantly kills him with the guard's gun and draws the Cataleya orchid on his chest, her signature mark, and then places the gun back in the guard's hand. The gunshot triggers the alarm, which alerts the security officials. The officers come running, but they find Rizzo's body and the gun still in the guard's hand. The guard swears he didn't kill him, but no one believes him, so he is cuffed on the spot. Cataleya is already on the rooftop, slipping through shadows. Almost spotted, she hides behind a vent, holding her breath, then circles back through a side exit and re-entering the building. But before they could get a hold of her, she slips back into her cell, undetected, calm and composed as if she never left. When the officers sweep through, they meet her right where they left her, still lying motionless. The FBI team led by Agent Ross flies in to inspect Rizzo's body, and after observation, the death and what follows looks very familiar. Thorough investigation shows that in the past 4 years, 22 persons have been killed with the same pattern and drawings. It's time to decode the message the killer is trying to pass. At the station, the so-called drunk lady is being processed for release, following all standard procedures. As she's getting cleared, Agent Ross heads to the holding cell where Rizzo was killed and walks through the scene. Convinced that the shooter didn't come from outside, he orders a full lockdown within the station. No one in or out, but Cataleya is gone already, sneaking out through the front door. As she walks away, she pulls off her latex gloves and tosses them on the ground, changes her looks, then heads to the public phone booth and dials Emilio's number, informing him the job is done. The CIA approaches Don Luis and reminds him of how they spared him from life imprisonment 15 years ago. The agent also talks about allowing him to run his little business, turning a blind eye towards his deeds and keeping the valuable information found in the tiny chip flowing in. Now, they suspect that the recent calculated killings is somehow tied to him, but since he denies having a hand in it, he should find the killer. Agent Ross and his team spring into action, investigating every person who has been killed. That includes Alexa Milshanova, who made a career out of getting intimate with high-stake gamblers in Vegas before ripping them off and sending them to their maker, as well as D'Angelo James, who tried to take over the heroin trade from Houston and the Gemini cartel. He hands out the names, addresses, and phone numbers of everyone with a pulse who was in the station before 1:55 a.m. on the day Rizzo was killed, noting that everyone in the folder is a suspect and wants a detailed dossier on each of them for the past 10 years of their lives.
Run down every lead, you will check every story. Because our killer, ladies and gentlemen, is in those folders. And I mean to catch him before he kills again.
Danny tries to open his door only to realize the door is slightly open. Confused, he pauses, casting a quick cautious glance over his shoulders before pushing the door open and stepping inside. The room is dark and silent until Cataleya softly calls Danny's name and flips on the light. He turns to her, and she leaps into his arms, surprising him with a brief, passionate kiss before pulling him toward the painting. Known to him as Jennifer, she teases him about never finishing his painting, removes his shirt, and deepens the kiss, but Danny pulls back, worried about keeping their relationship private. The next morning, Jennifer slips out of bed, quickly gets dressed, and leaves. She heads to meet Emilio, who gives her a new assignment: to kill a man who ran a Ponzi scheme about a year ago, stole $50 million, and vanished, now hiding in the Caribbean. He also warns Cataleya to be more careful in her deeds. Meanwhile, Agent Ross studies a drawing in his hand, a delicate flower drawn with precision. A voice behind him names the flower, and he looks up to see the delivery guy still glancing at the sketch. It's an orchid from Colombia, the man explains. Impressed, Ross asks how he knew. The delivery guy says his wife is from Colombia. Ross browses the internet to learn more about the Cataleya flower and to see if any organization might be linked to it, but his access is denied. William Wugard is living his best life, having fun, drinking, and surrounded by women, oblivious of the danger ahead. With no trace at all, Cataleya slips past the security and maneuvers her way in. One by one, she kills all his guards, quick, clean, and without any sound. But before she leaves, she leans in and draws her signature tattoo on the victim. Moments later, William jacks up, blinking awake as he looks down, confused about the tattoo on his chest. He curiously walks out of the room, looking for the killer. Outside, he sights the flower on top the glass floor above his private shark tank. He walks towards the flower, picks it up, stares at it, and leans forward to sniff it, and just then, Cataleya calmly calls out to him, instructing him to turn as she comes out of her hiding place. Before he speaks a word, Cataleya fires a shot at him. He tries to shoot back, but his gun is empty. Now scared, he begs for his life, even offering to pay double of whatever she was paid, but she releases another shot at him. The shots hit clean with blood spilling across the glass. Beneath, the sharks smell blood and swim aggressively until the glass cracks and then shatters. Williams falls in, and within seconds, the water turns red. Mr. Stephen Richard, head of the CIA, sits reading a newspaper when a call from Agent Ross comes in. Ross informs him that he's the lead agent on a serial case involving a killer who tags each victim with a flower from Colombia. However, every time he tries to access information, he is blocked by the CIA's access denied restriction. Mr. Stephen cuts Ross off, making it clear he can't share any information over the phone. He tells him to file a formal request with the agency if he wants access, then ends the call. Afterward, he places another call to Macro, instructing him to quickly take care of the problem because the FBI is now on his trail. Back at the station, the surveillance tapes from Cataleya's arrest are brought to Agent Ross. They show a drunk woman being arrested, suspected of being the target killer. Ross dismisses it, insisting the killer cannot be a woman. Danny returns from New York and finds Cataleya still at his apartment. She pours him wine and hands him a gift, a stuffed alligator, exactly what he has always wanted. She tries to kiss him, but he stops her, asking questions to learn where she's from and where her parents are. When she refuses to answer, he reassures her that he won't hurt her. He just wants to understand what she feels and how she feels about him. By the next morning, Danny makes breakfast and takes a picture of her before placing the food on the bed. Slowly, she opens her eyes, quickly sits up, and hurriedly puts on her dress. Danny tries to calm her, but she ignores him, grabs her things, and leaves. Cataleya meets Emilio at the library, and upon seeing Cataleya, he throws the newspaper he's holding at her.
8 people slaughtered in Miami. One of them is my friend.
So what?
You know exactly what. It's getting too close.
Emilio wants Cataleya to stop whatever game she's playing, but she refuses to back down and charges at him. Furious, he tells her he no longer wants to hear from her. She is not to come to the house or the church. He hands her a picture of her and her parents and storms out. Later, Danny shows his friend Ryan a picture of Cataleya he took and tells him about her. While they're talking, Danny notices a police officer near his car. He excuses himself to see what's happening. Ryan grabs Danny's phone and calls his sister-in-law, a CIA agent. He sends her Cataleya's picture and asks her to run a background check. She immediately begins investigating, and Agent Ross receives a signal of an element match from surveillance of Cataleya. He calls his team and instructs them to send someone immediately to the 3rd Precinct in Chicago. The FBI arrives at the Chicago precinct and takes over the system Ryan's sister-in-law was using, now analyzing Cataleya's identity. The investigation confirms a 100% match. Meanwhile, Cataleya pulls out her phone and calls Danny. Unbeknownst to her, the moment the call connects, the FBI system tracks her location within seconds. Danny tells her he is looking at a picture of her he took while she was asleep. Surprised, she asks if he showed it to anyone, and he admits he showed it to Ryan. Furious, Cataleya rushes to her system and discovers it has been accessed by a third party. She demands to know who else saw her picture. Checking her surveillance cameras, she realizes her house is now surrounded by SWAT. The SWAT team led by Agent Ross arrives at her residence with full precision. At the front of Cataleya's apartment, they set a bomb timer ready to breach. At the other end, near the service exit, Cataleya quietly sets her own bomb timer perfectly in sync with theirs. Both bombs blow up at the same time, one tearing open the front door for the SWAT team to gain entrance into her apartment, while the other causing a distraction for Cataleya to escape, gaining access into the garage. Agent Ross deploys men to the garage while leading the way. Luckily for Cataleya, she escapes through an airway in the garage. Agent Ross, not backing down, instructs them to find her, very confident that she's still there. The men are told to check everywhere, under the car, in the boot, but Cataleya is nowhere to be found. She finally escapes and heads home, only to find Macro, Emilio, and Mama dead. Agent Ross tries to microwave his food when Cataleya comes in and points a gun at him.
This won't take long, please.
You think you've been smart? You covered all your bases? Get this? This is already over. This whole place is wired with webcams.
Cataleya holds up the webcams to his face, warning him that the chair he's sitting on is pressure-wired and that a single wrong move could be his last. She opens up, telling him this isn't the life she wanted. Like any child, she once dreamed of being on the other side. But at 9, Don Luis had her parents killed right in front of her. Putting the pieces together quickly, Agent Ross realizes the tag killings and clues weren't meant for them. They were for Don Luis. Cataleya warns him to do whatever it takes to catch Don Luis, or he will risk attending a funeral every week, feeling the same pain she felt losing her parents. The next day, Agent Ross meets with the CIA and demands any information they have on Don Luis, explaining his ordeal with Cataleya. During the conversation, Cataleya calls him, instructing him to tell Mr. Steven that if he doesn't release the information she wants, she will redecorate his office with his body. Seeing his disbelief, Cataleya shoots straight into his office and tells Agent Ross to inform him he has 10 seconds to comply, or become her 24th victim. Full of revenge, rage, and grief, Cataleya returns to her warehouse. She gathers her machine guns and her trained dogs, loyal and fierce, gets into her truck, and drives out. She stops at a vantage point near Don Luis's apartment, hides, and opens fire on the sitting room where Don Luis and his men are strategizing. Bullets tear through the space, destroying half the apartment. Seeing the destruction, Macro acts fast, leading Don Luis into a small, hidden basement covered by a sculpture. Don Luis is shaken but stays quiet, hidden from view. Macro joins the other men, arming himself as they move to confront Cataleya head-on. They spread out, scanning every shadow and movement. After hours of relentless shooting, killing, and chaos, Macro and Cataleya finally come face to face. No more running and no more hiding.
You've been waiting for this moment for a very long time, right?
Yes.
They clash in close, brutal combat, each blow full of rage fueled by years of unfinished business. But Cataleya is faster, smarter, and more driven, and with that, she overpowers him, and with one final move, she kills him. A heavy silence follows as the noise ends and gunfire fades. As silence fills the room, Don Luis cautiously comes out from his hiding place. Covered in sweat and fear, he makes his way to the parking lot and enters his van. Without looking back, he starts the engine and drives off into the street. Halfway through, Don Luis's phone rings and Macro's name flashes on the screen. Breathing heavily, he answers the call, but it's not Macro's voice, it's Cataleya's, and so he begins to blab.
What were you expecting?
You have ruined your whole life to trying to kill me? Someone like me? I cannot be killed. I do the killing. Now, it's your turn to be hunted.
Calmly, she listens to him as he rants before she finally speaks.
Actually, you're exactly where I want you to be.
From the other end of the line, Cataleya listens in silence as the dog growls and charges towards Don Luis, erupting chaos followed by his screams, shouts, and then nothing. And that, my friends, is how it ended. If you've made it to the end, hit the like button, comment, and share. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next recap.